Hi guys, welcome to the information world. In this video, I will tell you about Russian sleep experiment by secret agency KGB. So kindly watch this video till end. In late 1940, the Russian researchers did an experiment. It's called the Russian sleep experiment. In World War II, scientists of KGB had been given a task to discover a way to keep soldiers awake without any difficulty. The purpose for this experiment was to keep someone awake continuously for 1 month without sleep, even for a second. It was a cruel experiment. The test subjects were 5 political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. To make them comply for this cruel experiment, they had an agreement, or should I say a false agreement. If they won't sleep for a month, they will be free to go to their homeland. If they don't agree, they will all be put to death on the spot. So they had no other choice but to agree for this experiment. They were kept in a sealed environment, a chamber with full of toxic gas. That chamber had 5-inch thick glass window and microphones in order to monitor their oxygen intake, so that gas did not kill them. Since it was an intense toxic, please keep in mind that time closed-circuit cameras had not been invented so far. The first CCTV camera was invented in 1942. The chamber was stocked with books, enough dried food for all 5 subjects for over a month, running water and toilet, but no bed for sleep. Everything went fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained for anything, having been promised that they would be freed if they subjugate and don't sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities used to be monitored, and it was noted that they kept on talking frequently on traumatic incidents of their past, and the general tone of their conversation converted towards to the darker aspects after the 4th day. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were, and started to demonstrate severe paranoia. People who don't know what paranoia is, I will tell you its meaning in easy words so you can understand me easily. Paranoia is a state of mind where infected person sees things which are not actually exist there. Paranormal things. In some cases, they also felt jealous of their partners and colleagues. Then they stopped talking to each other and began whispering to the microphones. Scientists of this experiment thought it's an effect of their toxic gas. After 9 days, one of them began to scream. He ran to the length of the chamber, rapidly yelling at the top of his lungs. For 3 hours straight, the other 4 subjects did not even look at him, and suddenly the screaming stopped. The researchers postulated that he had physically damaged his vocal cords permanently. The other 4 subjects continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The other non-screaming captives took the book apart and smeared pages after pages with their own poo on the glass window. The screaming promptly stopped, so did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphone hourly to make sure they were working fine, since they thought it's impossible that how a sound could not come with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very high level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of 14th day, researchers thought that maybe the microphones are not working fine anymore, so no voice coming from inside. They announced, "We are gonna open the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. The one who comply will get immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response, "We no longer want to be freed." After that, debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding the research unable to provoke any more response using the intercom. It was finally decided to open the chamber at the midnight of the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediate voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened, and soldiers sent in to retrieve the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any one of them in life. The food had not been touched so much in past 5 days. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chest stuffed into the drain in the center of the chamber, blocking the drain, allowing 4 inches of water to accumulate on the floor. Precisely how much of the water on the floor was compressed on blood was never determined. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscles and skin torn away from their bodies. The destruction of flesh and exposed bone on their fingertips indicated that the wounds were inflicted by hands, not with teeth, as the researchers initially thought. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most of them were self-inflicted. The abdominal organs below the ribcage of all 4 test subjects had been removed, while the heart, lungs, diaphragm remained in place. The skin and most of the muscles attached to the ribcage had been ripped off, exposing the lungs through the ribcage. All the blood vessels and organs remained intact. They had just been taken out and laid on the floor, fanning out around the bodies of the subjects. The digestive tract of all 4 could be seen to be working, digesting food. It quickly became apparent that what they were digesting was their own flesh that they had ripped off and eaten over the course of days. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but many of them refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded to turn the gas back on, lest they fall asleep. Everyone's surprised, the test subjects start fighting in the process of being removed from the chamber. One of the Russian soldiers died from having his throat ripped off. Another was gravely injured by having his testicles ripped off, and an artery in his legs was severely injured by one of the subject's teeth. The 5 of the soldiers lost their life, if you include ones who committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. In the struggle, one of the 4 living subjects had his spleen ruptured, and he bled out almost immediately. The medical researchers attempted to sedate him, but this proved impossible. He was injected with a dose of morphine derivative 10 times stronger than a normal human. But still he fought like a corner animal. He broke the ribs and arm of one doctor. When heart was seen to beat for a full 2 minutes after he had bled out to the point. There were more air in his vascular system than blood. Even after it stopped, he continued to scream and fight for another 3 minutes, struggling to attack anyone in approach and just repeating the word more over and over, weaker and weaker, until he finally died. The surviving 3 test subjects were heavily restrained and moved to a medical facility. The 2 with intact vocal cords continuously begging for the gas, demanding to be kept awake. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare him for a surgery. He fought furiously against his restraint when the anesthetic gas was brought out to put him under. He managed to tear most of the way through a 4-inch white leather strap on one wrist, even though the weight of a 200-pound soldier holding that wrist as well. It took 3 times more anesthetic than normal to put him under, and in an instant his eyelid closed and his heart stopped. In the autopsy of the test subject that died on the operating table, it was found that his blood had tripled the level of oxygen than a normal human body. His muscles that were still attached to his skeleton were badly torn, and he had broken 9 bones in his struggle to not be subdued. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming, his vocal cords destroyed. He was unable to beg or object to surgery, and he only reacted by shaking his head violently in disapproval when the anesthetic gas was brought out. He nodded his head when someone suggested that they tried the surgery without anesthetic. He did not react for the entire 6 hours procedure of replacing his abdominal organs and attempting to cover them with what remained of his skin. The surgeon stated repeatedly that it's not medically possible for a patient to still be awake or alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. When the surgery ended, the subject looked at the surgeon and began to wheeze loudly, attempting to talk while struggling. Assuming this must be something important for the surgeon gave him a pen and notepad so the patient could write his message. The message was, "Keep cutting." The other 2 subjects were given the same surgery, both without anesthetic. The surgeons found it impossible to perform the operation while the patient laughed continuously. Once paralyzed, the subjects could only follow the attending researchers with their eyes. The paralytic cleared their system in an abdominal short period of time, and they were soon trying to escape their bonds. The moment they could speak, they were again asking for the stimulant gas. The researchers tried to asking why they had injured themselves, why they had ripped off their own organs, why they wanted to be back in the gas again. Only one response was given: I must remain awake. All three subjects restrained were reinforced and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting determination as to what should to be done with them. The researchers, facing the wrath of their military benefactors for having failed the stated goal of their project, considered euthanizing the surviving subjects. The commanding officer, an ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. In preparation for being sealed in the chamber again, the subjects were connected to an EEG monitors and had their restraint padded for long-term confinement. To everyone's surprise, all three stopped struggling the moment when they were going back to the gas chamber. It was obvious that at this point all three were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs against the leather bonds with all his might, first left, then right, then left again for something to focus on. The remaining subject was holding his head off the pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be weird for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brain waves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined. It looked as if he were rapidly suffering brain death before returning to normal again. As they focused on papers scrolling out of the brainwave monitor, only one nurse saw his eyes slip shut at the same moment his head hit the pillow. His brainwaves immediately changed to that of deep sleep, then flatlined for the last time as his heart simultaneously stopped. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed it now. His brainwaves showed the same flat lines as one who had just died from falling asleep. Commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside as well as three researchers. One of the named three immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank between the eyes, then turned his gun on the mute subject and blew his brain out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. I won't be locked in here with these things, not with you, he screamed at the man strapped to the table. What are you? He demanded. I must know. The subject smiled. Have you forgotten easily? The subject asked. We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at the moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence, and when you go to a natural heaven where we cannot tread. The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flattened as the subject weakly choked out, so nearly free. Thank you so much guys for watching the video. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel for more informative videos.